heck, one of the most popular things, or maybe the most popular thing you've done since you got out, was Manhunt on Discovery Channel, right?
The country would know, I'd come in and we'd sit down and we'd all sign contracts and we'd all shake hands, we'd all meet each other. And then they would know that, there would be like a 3-day window or a 4-day window, and we give them a time window within those 3 or 4 days, from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, it's going to happen. And so just be watching your normal things. And then we would come up with a way for me to let them know based on what they actually did. So I would kind of mold my E&E plan and the tools I would use and the booby traps I would use and all of that around kind of what they actually are used to dealing with on a regular basis. So I did one in South Africa in a Kruger National Park. And so I kind of acted like and conducted myself like a poacher would. And then in Poland, they had a lot of Eastern European people smuggling and crossing through their woods into Western Europe. And so I kind of conducted myself in that manner, using the tools and kind of moving in that same way. Of course, I'm using all the stuff I have at my disposal, but we kind of wanted to gear it in the method that they're used to working.
Yeah, and then they get some training out of it as well by having to try and, yeah.
I mean, they got to track and try to take down someone who has a skill sets and motivation much higher than their general, person. And I get to do an escape and evasion exercise against a country using all of their assets.
Yeah.
They're using global hawks, or they're using, hardcore FLIR units, or they're using, in fact, sometimes when they use things they're not supposed to, they're using mobile phone triangulation vehicles to try to triangulate the producer's cell phone. That happened in South Korea. They don't know that I know, but I know.
Yeah, I gotcha. That is so cool. And now for each of those countries, what were your, takeaways for the listener? You cross, you get in, which I would say, black, right? You have white, gray, and black is the color codes for how you get into countries. And so you were going in pretty much black. Yeah. And then what were your priorities as far as like when it came to water and food and all that? How did you kind of...
That's a good question. So I would have to, when I would plan this out, I would usually have a week to 2 weeks to plan my evasion out. And so I'd have a map and I would know my extract point. They wouldn't know my extract point. So I would know my insert and my extract point. And so I would map different possible routes. So I would have 4 or 5 different routes that were possibilities depending on what they do. What they do is going to drive me in different directions. And so along those routes, depending on the environment I'm in, of course, there's water considerations, there's food considerations, there's temperature considerations, there's temperature differential, night and day, you're in the desert. There were a lot of different things I'd have to take into consideration. Water was probably the biggest one. Most cases. So, you have your rule of threes: 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, or 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. So you have to prioritize your, what you need to do, your shelter, your water, your food, according to the environment and the time constraints and the weather and where you're at. So I would plan everything out and I would be like, oh, there's just a really cool pond on the map. If that's actually there, I could do a really cool deception around there. And it looks like there's some sparse trees here. So I could set some booby traps and then I could diddy him out off here at like about 270. And I could probably leave them confused there for a couple hours. And so I would prepare just rough ideas of deceptions and booby traps. And I would then prepare, what I would need for those in my little E&E kit. And so then if I happen to find myself in that area, if based on what they did in tracking and chasing me, drove me to that area, I would have something kind of halfway thought out already planned that I could pull out of my ass and set up there. So I had a chance I would do a lot of homework on a lot of map study, a lot of homework because, I couldn't drive they were driving where I was going really. I just had to be flexible and have enough contingencies planned out that no matter where they drove me, I would have a plan and I wouldn't just be running.
Right. Yeah, I like it. Now, did you carry a water filter?
Yeah.
Just to simplify. So what was your favorite water filter you used?
Well, I would carry a couple different ones. I generally wouldn't carry a filter. A lot of times I just carry iodine tablets.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it would depend, I mean, if I'm in some place with like swampy and a lot of murky water, then I would carry a filter because, you got to filter the sediment out. But honestly, for this kind of stuff, for E&E corridors and for running, a Sani straw, I thought was the best portable
Oh
water.
yeah.
So you can just wear it around your neck. It lasts forever, and I can suck out of a mud puddle. I can suck out of a nicely running stream. But I would always have iodine tablets. That was kind of my go-to.
Yeah, the Puri tabs and stuff. They got so many different variations these days that you can just throw 2 tabs in and boom, you got good water without it's virus and bacterial, free.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is huge in order to keep going. And then I'm guessing sometimes you just said fuck it and probably just starved, right? Because you knew you're only going 2 to 4 days.
If I had the chance, I mean, I would always familiarize myself with the medicinals and the edibles in the area, and then also venomous snakes and all the other stuff. So I would know. I don't have all that in my mind bank. I would, research each place I'm going in, so I know.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, like when I was in Africa, you'd find I walked through some fields of termites, and I just grab termites and eat those. So you have something that you're eating. It's not going to give you a lot of sustenance, but if you can just grab a couple grasshoppers or locusts, there's something in your stomach. There's something there to keep it from growling, or you can get a snake. That's great. Or, some edible leaves, or flowers. That's great. But most of the time it was just exactly what you said, fuck it and starve. And then there were a couple times too, that, on the water situation. Now, to everybody out there listening, never drink untreated water when you're out. Just even if it's a pure mountain stream, something might be dead up ahead, upstream, and you just don't know it. It always pays to filter your water. But there were a few times when I'm like, there's like 4 hours left or 2 hours left, or I'm only 400 meters through the jungle till my extract point. And I'm like, I need something to drink. I'm not going to wait 45 minutes for my tabs to work. I'm just going to drink that water, because if I get dysentery, I'm going to be back at the hotel and I won. So
yeah,
the win is smaller than the window for the bacteria. Right. Amoebic infection to hit me. So I just say, fuck it.
Just do some quick math and be like, okay, gulp, gulp, gulp.
Like, I hope this doesn't, ruin my weekend once I'm back at the hotel.
That's awesome. Yeah, man, what a great experience. Now so once you did 2 seasons of that, then what kind of came after that?
Well, after the first season, Manhunt was really popular. We did a bunch of press. It was fantastic. I was having a great time. And so they then gave me a second show called Predators Up Close. And that aired on Animal Planet mostly, and on Discovery in some countries, where we would go interact with some of the world's biggest predators, great whites, polar bears, lions, and hyenas. And they built this special dome, this little geodesic dome out of aluminum and plastic. And we would build this dome and kind of encourage these animals to come up and attack the dome. And we'd have bite strength meters and things like that. And I would be in the dome filming them and, getting attacked by these giant animals. And that was awesome. And I picked that one because I just thought, how cool would it be to be in a little aluminum and plexiglass tent while a polar bear climbs on top and tries to, break in. I'm like, that's badass stuff. And so I did that. And I remember we were doing it with great whites. So this actual pod that we made, it was amphibious. So it dropped into the water off of the shark ship, and the pod had these big holes in it. So the sharks couldn't get all the way in, but I could reach out. And so these great white sharks would come attack this pod, and we're filming it, and it's just badass. But what was really cool is the shark would come swimming up and on this pod, and then would kind of back off and turn sideways and swim off. And these 15-foot great whites are right there. And I'm reaching out, grabbing their gills, grabbing their pectoral fins, petting these great white sharks. And I remember I had comms, full face mask, and I had comms to the top. And the director, who was British, he's like, Joel, are you reaching out and grabbing the sharks? And I'm like, fuck yeah, these are great white sharks. And when am I going to get a chance to grab a great white shark again? And he's like, please, insurance would like you to keep your hands and feet inside the pod. And I'm like, no fucking way, dude. So I'm grabbing every shark I can. I'm like, come on, dude. When you get a chance to grab a great white shark, you take it.
Yeah, you definitely checked a bunch of bucket lists that no one else would ever write down as a bucket list
Except for
item.
guys like us.
Yeah, it's usually only team guys that have these very distorted versions of what's cool.
The thing that was cool that a lot of people didn't think was cool is we did a 2-part special on Fukushima. So we actually got to go to Fukushima after the meltdown. I got to go in the actual destroyed reactors. And
wow.
yeah, I was wearing a radiation, I can't remember what you call it, radiation meter.
Geiger meter or whatever.
Something like that. Yeah, that was measuring my how much radiation I took over the course of the filming. And once it hit the total, I couldn't get back on the place. But that was a fascinating thing to go there and hear the whole stories and watch everything and see what that actually happened and see the melted down reactors. And it was pretty crazy stuff, man.
You're listening to Can You Survive This Podcast? Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe, rate, and share on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite shows.